kind of excited because if I make it to Thursday, which is always a chance I could tie for Thursday, I will have all of my A&P 1 and 2 in this new majors book, all somewhat on tape, some better than others, no doubt. At least I have that there. So whatever happens next year, hopefully we're going to have everybody 2 days a week. But if we have to, they can figure that out. They can always go back and watch another election from the past, right? All right. Good afternoon. All right, guys. Let's try to get it on time, guys. I've done gone over the test 3 times, right? This is how it happens, right? Somebody comes in 10 minutes late, and then they want to. What we're doing next week, right? So one more time, show some out. Get it out from good chance. All right, so we were in 46. We're working on 46. Okay, really fun chapter here. Actually, my daughter ended up going into this. She had a master of biology degree from this, but she actually ended up going into biogeography, or excuse me, into geology and some of the took some classes down in Mississippi State in meteorology. So there's actually meteorology is in the geology department of Mississippi State. And they actually have a very good program. Some of y'all might want to go into how the weather works, right? And weather prediction and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Okay, and got the other one too. Thank you. You sign on? Okay. All right, thanks. We'll take the little off of that. Okay, so one more time, since we got everybody here. So next Tuesday, this goes for everybody, so might as well, if you're watching the video, right? Next week, it's your regular scheduled class time, is your written file counts, what, 15% of your final grade. And I'm going to pull 2 or 3 of these chapters, probably one chapter out of every one of these. We did like 20. I think we started in chapter 21 or something like that. So we got a whole bunch. I don't know what it is. Look at it after midterm chapters. It's a lot. Okay. And then we're going to sign up when y'all get through to take the online part. And I'm going to do something. I'm doing something actually different this time with y'all. It's actually it's a little bit easier test than the midterm. I have 50 questions that I have to give y'all anyway that we give everybody taking this course. And then we have to turn them in and look at it, do an analysis of that. And it is over everything, though it is over everything in general biology too. But they're very simple questions, way easier than some of the ones I pulled for the midterm. Okay. So I was going to give y'all that and then give y'all 50 more. We're going to get there, pull out 1 or 2 out of a chapter. And I thought, you know what? It's been a long semester. I'm just going to give you all those 50. Okay. So that's going to make that go a lot quicker. It should take y'all about 30 minutes to take this test. So y'all come in one night next week, take the test. The only problem with it is I had one other teacher that teaches this online. So I actually got her file of it online and she made it a 50-point test. Okay. 1 each. I spent about 20, 40 minutes trying to put them, I could change them all to 2. And then when I took it, it counted them as 1. So I don't know what I'm doing, why it's doing that. Okay, but welcome to my world. So, but when you go into assignments, it is going to be in there as the online final exam, 15% of your grade. But the column that has that score is going to be a score of 1 to 50. For somebody has a nervous breakdown, don't call the president's office, listen to the instructor, right? It is out of 50. So if you make a 40, don't go jump off the Mississippi River Bridge. You made a freaking 80, right? You double that. Okay, so please, before someone kills themselves, I just don't want anybody to hurt themselves this next week. Because some of y'all listen to about half what I said or a third, especially this week, because we're all burnt out. And I'm tired too. Okay, but anyway, so, but it will be right? So it's going to be out of 50. So 50, 40 out of 50 will be 80. So that'll count 80 as 15% of your grade. So I'm pretty sure the math's right. I'll double check it. When I see some of y'all, I'll run it with my hand calculator just to make sure. But I believe I got the columns all right, other than I can't get it to change to 2 points each to make it a 100-point test. Okay, so just prepare yourself when you one of the little canvas flaws. Okay, everybody got that? So be sure and sign up on that. Now look, if you go home and find out you won the lottery and want to take it on Monday, call me. I'll change your name or email me and I'll change it. Of course, we've already done that, right? From somebody else. Okay, so anyway, so just email me if you can't do the day you sign up. But you have to take it. Don't wait. And I would ask you not wait for Thursday. If you can see Thursday, I'm going to say incomplete. There's a whole lot of headaches for you and me, right? Because I can't give it. I have to. It's a big problem. Here's a cool one here. Just looking at the different climates of the year, our seasons. I thought it's pretty cool. And you watch the video, but it's actually the tilt. It's the tilt of the Earth, not us getting closer to the sun. Okay, which I thought was pretty fun. And then talks about topography. Here's one of my favorite ones: rain shadow. This is why Death Valley is on the east side of 2 huge mountain ranges, because it creates dry conditions after what. And all of our storms come from west to east, right? Y'all notice that, right? That's because of these trade winds right? So they come across this way. And so the deserts are there for a reason, because if you have a mountain range, it's going to rain on the ocean side, and then it gets very dry on the wayward side, or leeward side there. Get my terminology there right. And so we have 3 mountain ranges that right before Death Valley and before the deserts out California and Nevada. It's pretty amazing. I would suggest y'all go out there. Okay, now, and as I'm giving y'all a quick review on 2046. It's on paper. I just want to get up to where I stopped, and we'll finish this chapter. Here's another cool one here. We looked at the biomes on yesterday. I love the biomes, right? There's like, what, 8 or 9 of them there. And some books have 15, some books have 10. So there's a lot of variation there. But look at this. The main thing that drives the biome, and now a biome is just all the organisms that live in a particular ecosystem, is what? Average rainfall and average what? Temperature, right? That's pretty cool, right? Everybody see that? So as you go down the left column, you get hotter as you go down, and as you go colder, you get into Arctic Circle kind of stuff, right? And then as you go right here is rainfall. So the very pin here, right here is more rainfall goes left to right. So there's your tropical rainforest, right? And then as you go lose a little water, it becomes seasonal forest, becomes savanna, then it becomes a desert. And so we're seeing biome shifting. Now we know, for example, that the Sahara Desert in Africa, the largest desert on earth, was once a grassland. Okay, it was a savanna, a grassland, and it's turned into desert. So we may be seeing global warming, and some of these other things actually have an effect on biome changing, right? And we're going to see that. We'll look at that. We'll look at some of that. We looked at it yesterday. So, and here are the biomes. Notice that we see deserts at 30 degrees north and south of the equator. And that's because the air currents pushing the moisture air up, and it's very dry when it blows down there. It's like a hairdryer blowing down on the areas north and south 30 degrees. So we see the deserts of Australia and South America, and at 30 degrees north, we see the Sahara, Middle East, and then southwestern United States and parts of Mexico. Pretty cool. Okay, and then we just kind of ran through them and looked at some of the biomes, and I talked about caribou hunting. My dad's been caribou hunting. I've actually have spent quite a bit of time in Canada looking at, and up in the Yellowstone area looking at moose. I love moose. I'm obsessed with the moose and the moose. I don't know what you call cool for that. Okay, I don't even know. Okay, but very beautiful animals. They like to hang out in this tundra, which is the evergreen forest. As you can see the blue areas. Okay, we live in a temperate deciduous forest, right? And so we should be a oak forest out here. If we were to just leave it alone and go back to become oak forest, and that's pretty cool. Had a lot of fun. Anybody seen a bobcat in the woods? Probably it's our native predator, right? Pretty cool. Seen that too in the woods. That's really pretty. And then the rainforest, we talked about epiphytes. These are plants, living trees. Look where all the biomass in this ecosystem is, and that's up in the canopy. So when they cut these down, and that's where they're found, the trees are the wood's carried off to make furniture, and all the nutrients get washed away when it rains. So you cannot even grow the trees there again. So it's very, very sad. So once we cut down on that here, you could oak forest down, it would grow back. But there, because of all that nutrients in the canopy, we really need to try not to cut all that down. Okay, because it will not grow back there. It turns it into grassland. Shrublands, chaparrals out in California have to have fire in ecosystems. That makes a lot of sense to build with a chaparral, right? So your house will burn down every couple of years, okay? But that's Northern California, right? Parts of Africa, South America, and Australia's got about everything. There's the Roadrunner, which looks like a cartoon. Then we got the grasslands, right, of the central United States. We see them in most of the parts of Europe and China. And of course, our biggest natural animal of that area would be the buffalo, right? That we almost completely killed to extinction. There were less than 400 or 500 buffalo at the turn of the last century in 1900. Okay, we had a little fun talking about that. Okay, and then here's the savannas, right? And that's on my bucket list to go there, and I'd like to go to Australia and spend a week or two, a month. Okay, deserts cover 30% of the earth. And real quick, one of my questions there about biomass, number 5. What do y'all think? Which of these biomes do you think have the most biomass? And that would be living matter per square inch. And it's the rainforest. So the rainforest is number 1, and then estuaries and swamps is number 2. Okay. On the other end, what do y'all think the least is? What do you think the least amount of living critters are per square inch? And it's kind of throws a lot of people off, but most people would say desert, right? And it's actually that comes in number 2. Number 1 is open ocean. So I mean, even though there's fish out there, per square inch of ocean is pretty much, it's not a lot going on, okay? Because there's so much of it. Okay, but so we would say if you put deserts, I take that to the deserts. The number 2, open ocean is number 1 of least amount of living organisms per square inch, or biomass per square inch. I really encourage y'all to go out to Death Valley before you die. I mean, most of y'all will probably go to Vegas at some point and do really bad things, right? So as an afternoon diversion, it's about a 2-hour drive from Vegas. You can go into Death Valley and see Sweetwater is where the highest temperature has ever been recorded on Earth, like 140 something. Okay, very hot, very hot. Hot. Okay. Then we got into the looked at aquatic ecosystems, talked about wetlands being God's filters, right? That's kind of cool. Lakes come in 2 flavors: oligotrophic on the left, which is pretty much not a lot of living things in it, right? But put some fish in there. But if you see a clear lake, that's not a very live lake, okay? But if you look at some of y'all's ponds right here, look on the right, that's eutrophication lake, where probably somebody's sewage ran into, or somebody's every time you wash your clothes, you use phosphates. Okay, phosphates is one of the elements in fertilizer. So you're actually putting fertilizer out when you release your when you have the stuff coming out of your house. I also want you to know the zones of talking about the what's called the turnover every year. There's a spring and summer turnover, where the water normally in the summer and winter stratifies out so it doesn't mix. There's a thermocline. If you ever jumped in a swimming pool or lake, you felt that cold layer where it changes temperature, where hot, cold water don't mix. But in the fall, as the cold air water gets cold at the top, it mixes, you get a turnover, and same thing in the summer and spring. You can call out Sardis or Arbor Butler, and they'll tell you when the spring and summer turnover occurs. Okay, they monitor it. And one way you can monitor it is, usually when you have this stratification, it goes anaerobic under here, so you get a lot of foul smelling, like things out of it that smells like something coming out of somebody, in their feces, right? So you get a bad smell that day when it turns over, because some of that anaerobic gets out. But it also mixes nutrients up, so you get nutrients on the bottom of the lake, and that's kind of cool. And then I'm going to draw the zones of a lake ecosystem. And you can see these little zones, benthic zone, the limnic zone, profundal zone, and these are the zones of a freshwater lake. Estuaries, once again, are where the rivers run into oceans, right? And this is a big area of birds and fish. And this is where a lot of the birds, a lot of the animals lay their eggs. A lot of the fish come in, shrimp, and some of these, they go in here, and this is where it's happening at. Crawfish are really big in these estuaries. Then we looked at open oceans, right? And here's the layers of that. I think the best thing I can think of is the bottom of the ocean. It's one of my favorite movies, The Abyss, right? The abyssal zone, that's the bottom of the ocean, right? Where we thought no life existed. Now we found those thermal vents, and there is some life down there, right? And we can look at those. Here's different layers of the ocean and some of the critters that live in it. Pretty cool. That's kind of cool. And then talk about those thermal vents we mentioned there, with life around them, with critters with no eyes, because the light doesn't penetrate that far down. The blue comes from the water filtering out the wavelengths. The light blue is the one that goes through. It's why it looks blue. Okay, and then we're getting into, this is a cool one on biomagnification. Okay, and this is a concept. We got a picture of this. Usually they put one in. That was kind of sad. Okay, that kind of irritating. Maybe it's coming up later, but this is talking about, and I can't read the whole thing because of that, but I think it's talking about mercury poisoning. And so what happens here is mercury and lead both do this. That we have factories and effluents out of solar industry, and this gets in the water table, and the fish take it into their body, and it's not enough to kill them like the little bitty critters, the little daphnia. They'll be like 2 or 3 parts per million, but the fish that eats the daphnia, their body part will be like 100 parts per million, and then your prime predator here, like this big fish, would be 1,000 parts per million. And that can start causing them to have problems with their body dying or reproductive problems. But then if you were to eat them every day, that can hurt your baby. And so biomagnification is what we've seen this. This is the magnification of toxins in the biomass of animals as we go up the food chain. Okay, and there may be a picture later on coming in here, because I looked over this yesterday, I looked over this morning, but usually there's a picture showing the biomass actually magnifying up. For example, you would not want to live, like my brother lives in Orange, Texas, which is right near Galveston, and it is nothing but, we went down, I was up back there spring break, took my dad down there, and you can see like there's 40 miles of nothing but petrol plants. petroleum plants, and they're pouring, and the effluents running everywhere. And everybody's people fishing. My brother won't eat the fish. He'll go fishing, but he won't eat the fish because they got these contaminants in them, right? And then that's one of the highest levels of cancer in humans anywhere in America, is that little area down there. So people, we know we're poisoning people indirectly, right? But it is what we have to, I mean, it is, this is what it is, okay? But that's a big deal. Biomagnification, you got this little concern here. Also, I had one on here too. I made a question here. Number, let me find it here. Number 13 talks about the El Nino effect, and this is kind of wild. But look at this. I'll read this to you here. This is kind of an area. Y'all may have heard this. It pops up every once in a while. We'll have what they call an El Nino effect. Okay, and this is what happens. Look, the major ocean currents move warm water and heat from the equator to cooler parts of the biosphere. The Gulf Stream current warms the east coast of North America and the higher latitudes of Western Europe, and it moves tropical Caribbean water. Another one occurs in the southern hemisphere in South America, and this one called this Hobart current in the southern hemisphere flows toward the equator, and it carries cold water northward along the western coast of South America. And in doing so, you get this upwelling where cold offshore winds replace warm, and you get that turnover, and you get this upwelling, which makes really good fisheries. Okay, but if you get this El Nino, it goes wrong, and the pattern doesn't work properly, and you have a really bad fishing season. Okay, and it can cause some weird weather too. So sometimes y'all may hear like Al Roker on the Today Show talking about there'll be an El Nino until this year. That's what they're talking about. Okay, I don't think I explained it real good, but it's real good in the book, and they kind of paraphrase it here. So read the whole paragraph in the book about it. It makes more sense. And I'm not going to pull the book out and read it to y'all, but it is a phenomenon of this upwelling that throws off the fisheries and can cause climate change in that area for a season. Okay, and here are the natural currents of ocean flow, right? We still don't know how the Indonesians and the Hawaiians got there, right? We don't know how they got there, right? We don't think they evolved on Hawaiian Island, right? We don't have any history, any proof of that, but they definitely got there. I guess somebody fell asleep in a boat, South America and landed up in Hawaii, right? But you can see the natural currents do flow that way, right? Pretty cool. Once again, you see most of our storms come across from the west. Right? Anyway, so that's all. I almost finished that chapter yesterday. We'll go to 47. That was a fun chapter. I like that chapter. All right, let me get some of this stuff out of the way. Didn't I do that? All right, here we go. Technology. All right, here we go. All right, so this is the one we're going to talk about. Just kind of talks about some of the things we may have done some damage to. Okay, and it starts off talking about kind of one of my favorite problems here. That if you introduce a predator to an area or any organism to an area where it doesn't normally live, you can get some huge implications. And we can actually, I think I made a question down here. So down there, I think I put it in there somewhere. Yeah, number 3. I don't know where I put it. Number 4. Is it a good idea to introduce non-native organisms to an ecosystem? And give 3 examples in your book. Here's one, okay? But another one I think we can relate to better, and y'all might find this really intriguing, is how many of y'all have ever heard of kudzu? Right, okay, good. Y'all have heard of kudzu. Okay, if you want to do something crazy, drive to Batesville. I mean, go drive down to Sardis and go to Oxford to the back roads, right? My man back there knows what I'm talking about, right? They are places between Sardis and Oxford, when you go back by the Sardis Lake, that they literally have to mow the kudzu because it will take you on the road and you'll miss a turn. And I know a couple of turns out there where if you were to go off in the summer, they'd be like Robin's missing. You'll be out on the news, I'll be on milk cartons, and come winter when that kudzu dies, they'll find my car laying in that hole. Okay. And so here's the bad news. Kudzu was brought to America by the Corps of Engineers around 1910, and they thought it would be real good to stop erosion. So this is a bad idea. They brought it, and it forms and grows. It has no natural predators with our plants. It outproduces our plants. And the problem is it doesn't even hold the soil. So if you ever walk in a kudzu field, you got found a hole in it, that's where it washed out. You'll kill yourself. You'll be falling in a 10-foot hole. Okay. Because it doesn't even hold the soil. It forms a mat on top of the soil. When it rains, it creates holes under it. Really bad idea. Thank you, Corps of Engineers. Okay. Another one that's real famous and real popular now. How many of y'all seen these oh my gosh, these big one of the carp in our lakes, like over in on the Tennessee, on the Mississippi River and over in the Tennessee waterway, especially what is it, Horseshoe Lake over here that runs in the Mississippi River, right in our school district. I've been up there, and so friends of mine got into bow fishing. Anybody done this where you take a bow in there? And by the way, I never did bow hunt. So I've gone with some friends of mine, and you go around at night with big old strobe lights and stuff, and you light up and you shoot the gar and the big fish, and then these carp. Well, my friend was going about 4 or 5 years ago, and he went over there, and he had to have a trolling motor to do that. Well, it's trolling motor boat. So he got all the way over there to that Horseshoe Lake, and his trolling ain't working. People was mad with him. He said, well, let's just drive around, see what happens. He got driving in the lake, and he was just playing out the speed, and he hit a certain speed that makes the sound to make those carp jump. Now, if you want to see something crazy, go on YouTube and type in jumping fish in America. These carp get up to 40 pounds, and when this frequency makes them jump up in the air, we don't know why they jump in the air. It's the dangerous thing about saying. And so then they started shooting them in the air. And they were jumping so much that I hit 10 or 15 with a bow and arrow, and I am totally useless with bow and arrow. I'm not good with that. I'm more of a shotgun kind of guy, a rifle pistol. And I even tried to get them to let me go get a samurai sword and stand on the front of the boat and slice them in two. That would have been very beautiful graphic video. Probably got us arrested probably. But no, they don't care. You can kill them if you want to them because they are destroying the ecosystem. They're overproducing, eating all the plants and killing our native plants. Our native animal fish then die. And so I had one guy, I had a brother-in-law that cooked them one time. They're okay. I'm not crazy, they're not catfish and bass, okay, we're gonna bring them. But we actually would throw them we would fill up a 50-gallon barrel and they would put them in the garden for fertilizer. Okay. And then we'd give them, some people that would eat them, okay. But they're real slimy and real stinky fish. And so they jump on you and hit you. And we really I had one of my guys, my football player, get knocked down. And so we were going to go another time, and one of the guys would bring his little son, and we went in. Like, no, you get a 10-year-old get killed. And so we put a football helmet and made him sit under the console by the steering console on the boat. Okay. Because I'm telling you, man, it's the craziest thing we're seeing. Go Google that. Okay. You need to see the flying fish. Okay. Find these Asian carp. So, and they can be up to 10, 15, 20 pounds, pretty common. They were brought in here, put into lakes to kill some of the plants and catfish ponds and stuff. And they got in the rivers, and it's just a mess. So anyway, but this is another example of one. And actually, if you look at this, this actually talks about these actually hurt. I believe this is the one that may have destroyed some of the ocean, the fisheries in the East Coast. Okay, and I think that's the guy that this lionfish was invasive to the Caribbean, and he has killed a lot of the ecosystem because of that. So biodiversity is a big deal, but biodiversity, it means to have different species in a given area. And so we're very concerned about that. So we want to maybe make sure that we don't destroy living organisms on Earth. And this is a pretty big field of biology. I actually have a guy went to high school, kind of weird. You think from my little town of South Sullivan, we graduated like 110. But it's a good friend of mine through high school, was like a year behind me, and he ended up going into biology also. And he got his PhD from Auburn, and he actually runs a biodiversity company now that will take, like, Shell Oil gets fined so much money for stuff they throw out, and they have to, like I told you, I didn't tell you the other day. I did say it yesterday, y'all ain't seen it yet probably. But like, for example, in Florida, if Disney World drains some swamp land in Orlando to build a Star Wars world that they just did, then they have to build the same amount of swamp somewhere else in the state. So Florida, if you drain a swamp, you have to replace that swamp. So there's a lot of these fines for emissions where they have to do set aside land, you know, to make it better, to compensate for them releasing some chemical over here. Well, my friend does that. He is the company that does the set aside and sets up wildlife refuge for them as part of their payoff for the waste they do. And I know that seems kind of crazy, but that's kind of where we're going. The only way we get the industry to do right is to find them if they do things wrong, right? And so this is one of the ways they have to do some good to pay it off. But that all is in this field of biodiversity. So this reclamation biology is a big deal. Some of y'all may want to go into that. Also, another hot field is bioinformatics, where you utilize all this data collected on this. And so my son-in-law is getting his PhD in July in wildlife management at Mississippi State. And his PhD was, he looked at the last 20 years of krill collection. Krill is the Sardis, Archipelago, Enid, and the big lakes in Jackson Reservoir. They go out and measure the fish every day, or, you know, blight and whale. And he's analyzed all that data and found a better way to analyze. So he's really getting a PhD in bioinformatics, even though it's wildlife management. He's got a couple, so he's got a couple of job interviews where he will be working. He's going to interview with the U.S. wildlife fisheries to be one of the people over all the rivers in this Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama area. But here's all these things you can do with conservation biology. So he is going into this, be a ranger, fisheries biology. He's looking for a job in that, veterinary medicine. All these all tie into this concept of conservation biology, which I think is a pretty cool area that some of y'all might want to go into, where you have basic biology at the top of this, and then applied biology. And so Mississippi State's putting a lot of people out in this stuff, okay? Look at that, it's estimated that there are about 8.7 million species exist, not counting bacteria and viruses, but that number may be higher. And so y'all have heard of these before. Endangered species are one that's in peril of immediate extinction throughout all or most of its range, okay? And here's a couple examples, like the giant pandas are endangered species. Threatened species, organisms that are likely to become endangered in the near future. We got one there, which we may be through the northern spotted owl. So anyway, so we put out a list every year of these organisms, and then that can lead to huge federal money to help study them. So what we try to do then is, there are several areas we can do. Ecologists describe biodiversity as a combination of 3 levels of biology. Genetic diversity, you don't want everybody to be clones because then disease will wipe them out. Community diversity, and then that's all the living organisms given area, remember? And then landscape, how we can change the landscape to help diversity. And that's kind of what they work into. So that refers to the amount of variation within the population. That can be bad. The community is dependent on the interaction of the species, how they get along with each other, right? Involves a group of interacting ecosystems. So what landscape, what type of biome you have can have a big effect on that. We'll look at that. We'll look at some of that. Here are some of the species. Most of them are insects, right? Which animals fall under. Just showing you what all we got out there. Here is one of those that's endangered. We just talked about. And you can see the numbers of this eagle, this opossum shrimp, and the salmon are going down. Another one that I can tell you that's kind of sad, I think they've updated. If you go, has anybody been to the Mississippi Museum of Wildlife down there? They're pretty cool in Jackson. They have a pretty good size. They don't have an aquarium as big as, obviously Atlanta or Knoxville or whatever. But they're not Knoxville. Chattanooga's got some cool aquariums. But anyway, down there, when they first opened it up, I went several years ago, in the bottom floor, the basement, they had a little room, kind of like the title of the door was like, "We missed you," or something, like "Long Gone," and it was a bunch of species that disappeared in Mississippi. And the main ones were some clams and oysters, what I call oysters, but these are freshwater mussels that were on the Tennessee River before they dug it out, dredged it out, and created the 10-ton waterway, which is a man-made river, so barges can go from Alabama all the way, from Mobile all the way to Knoxville, right, or up into the Great Lakes, right, the Mississippi Tennessee River. We'd never probably do that again, right? That was a major destruction of ecosystem, right? And those mussels were in that Tennessee River all the way up and down through Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. And they've been gone now for 20 years. Once we opened up Bay Springs Lake, there's a lake at Columbus, right? Where there's several down through there. At least 2 of those in Mississippi. So we have wiped out some of those guys. Other one here, not super great. We may knock this chapter out this morning. Biodiversity hotspots. Okay, now this is an interesting group. These are areas in where they contain 44% of the known higher plant species and 33% of the vertebrate species, but they only represent about 1.4% of Earth. And so these are going to be some really places we need to probably take care of. Right? One of them is really interesting is Madagascar. Right, very cool little island area there that has almost, like you said, some of the largest number of endangered species fall in this area. Also, we got the coast of California, and then the Great Barrier Reef, which I'd love to see out of Australia. Okay, so what do these things do? What does biodiversity do for us? This is just, I think, one of our questions. What are some of the, I think that's one of my questions. Yeah, listed describe examples of direct and indirect value of biodiversity. Okay, so what is a direct value? Well, obviously, right, species perform services for which humans can derive an economic value. These include medicine, a lot of medicine, right? I think we probably are going to find, I would say 75% of our pharmaceuticals come from plants. Okay, and then penicillin and one of our great antibiotics came from what? Fungus, right? So as we wipe out the rainforest and destroy those Madagascar, there may be some cures for some diseases right there that we're going to lose, right? And I think the biggest one is what? Agriculture, right? I mean, we gotta eat, right? We eat, right? We eat plants and fish, fisheries of fishes. Fish have been one of the staples forever, and we have destroyed a lot of those fisheries, right? But agricultural value, plants, I mean, food, and consumptive use value. We'll talk about that in a minute. So direct value is medical. You know, they estimate most prescription drugs currently used in the United States come from living organisms worth over 200 billion a year, right? There's an example of a Hodgkin's disease drug there. Okay. What that was about. Direct value agriculture, look at wheat, corn, rice were derived from wild plants that were modified to increase their yields. One book had this is kind of cool here, but I'll just give you all the thing about this. I'll give you 3 of them. But there's about 11 things that feed almost 95% of Earth. Okay, so there you go. Corn, rice, corn, wheat, rice. Wheat, corn, rice. All right, what else we eat? Oats, soybean, potatoes. Give you 2 or 3 types of those. See how hard this gets? I mean, banana. I don't know if bananas in the group. I mean, think about this, guys. There's like 11 species that's 99% of what we eat, the plants we eat. We need to take care of them, right? Yeah, you know, they have a cave somewhere in what is it? In I think it's one of the Norwegian countries. It's called the World Seed Repository, where we have seeds of every species on Earth locked in, you know, Ziploc bags buried in a nuclear-proof, tunnel, cave in case we blow everybody to blow the world up. We can, if anybody calls out of dust, they can get the seeds to start over, right? Or maybe give it to Elon Musk and he can go to Mars and touch the farm Mars, right? But anyway, which I think would be pretty cool. But think about that, and that's kind of wild when you think about so much of what we do came from nature, and just like 11 species feeds everybody. Pretty scary. Natural predators and plant pests have been introduced to agriculture system, reduce the impact of pests on the plant yield, and that can be bad sometimes too. Here's when it was introduced. This ladybugs were brought in to control agricultural pests, and then they eat the whole field up. So that was a bad move. Here's my favorite one, and this isn't another book, but this isn't a video that was in another book. But it looked like a bunch of drug agents, you know, with shotgun. But I noticed nobody had a pistol, nobody had a rock. But all these secret agents wearing masks and all this stuff, you know, like commandos, and they're in this barn in Australia. So I'm talking about 20 commandos that come up from this barn, and they've got the little microphones, they stick it on the door to hear what the drug dealers are saying. And they're like, this is like a CBS, one of the TV shows I was watching Discovery Channel on. Anyway, and I'm like, man, this is good stuff, you know, what kind of drugs they're running? And they go, we're in Australia. This is the Australian government secret commando task force team, Alpha Kill Rats or whatever, Alpha Rat. And I'm like, what the Alpha Rat? Anyway, they get up there and they go, you're like, when they hit 0, they bust the door off. Dudes come in with shotguns, dudes zip in on rope, you know, bust through the windows and everything. And it's like it's a grain bin, a room full of corn, and there's 1,000 rats. And they just start rabbits. They start shooting rabbits. There's rabbits. And I thought it was Saturday Night Live skit. But they killed a couple thousand rabbits. Well, here's the story. Somebody took rabbits to Australia 100 years ago. What a wonderful idea. No predator. Millions of them dying, thousands are dying everywhere. So they have a special commando who go around killing rabbits. No joke. Freak me out, man. They get like stars for every 100 rabbits or something, right? But they're overpopulated, okay? And so you can't bring people in, you can't bring different animals into areas. And I already told you about the kudzu, right? I mean, the kudzu and also the water raised umbilical that I used to work on. Was introduced, somebody dumped an aquarium and it took over that grass. Direct value, obviously, you know, cultivate land, et cetera, nothing much here. We sell a lot of wild fruits, wheat, you know, think about that, fibers, you know, you got your marijuana growers, right, in 40 states now, you got bees, honey. Is everybody, look at the fisheries, our natural fisheries, right? That's a big deal, right? I mean, come on, going out there collecting these fish and feeding the world, pretty cool. Now, what is indirect value? Based on the service ecosystems provide that do not have a measurable economic value. The biogeographical cycling of all those elements, right? That's free, right? But we really need those, keep those moving through so they don't get locked in. Waste recycling, man, remember those swamps are huge value of breaking down some of our chemical waste. Producing, helping make fresh water, right? So that's a big one, right? The swamps and estuaries go to the water. I actually have a good friend of mine here. When I moved to Santobia 29 years ago, I knew one guy in Santobia. He was a couple years older than me. and he's a friend of mine, my brother, my cousins, and knew him from high school. And he came over here and he used to work for Soil Conservation Agency. He just retired. Been retired about a year and a half. I need to join him here soon. His whole career was paying farmers money from the federal government to not work their land. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard. They had Robison jobs. They had 5, I'd say 20,000 trucks sitting out there. So every county, every 2 counties, there's a, and I'm not knocking it, it's a good government job, but the point of it is all their existence is to try to keep the farmers from losing their soil. And so they would actually come up and they would have these programs where like we would take 200 acres of pasture and we promise not to farm it. We will not cut it up, and we will not plant beans or anything like that. Can't even cut the hay on it. And they'll pay you like $50 an acre a year or something like that. Some amount of money. Not a great amount of money, but it adds up. And one time my dad got mad because it was the prettiest hay we had. I mean, the prettiest hay I've ever seen was on this set aside land. And he just couldn't help himself. He went and got the hay baler and the cutter. He was cutting it right when they pulled up to check our land. They come by once a year. So my dad just like, go ahead, write me up, man. It's so pretty. Okay. But anyway, so I guess my dad was abusing it. But anyway, and I think sometimes y'all may have seen this in some fields where there's like a power line, and you can see like an island around it, and all the soil is eroded. That's how much erosion we get around here. We got a lot of erosion in places, right? And so their idea is to do things to help farmers learn how to not lose the soil. Okay, and of course there's a debate here, but we do know that climates play a role in regulation of the biome and regulate climate. And here's a hot area, man. Ecotourism, right? My brother lives in Orange, Texas, and there was outfitters there that take you out on a swamp tour, right? And kind of find out there's a little factory in town that makes most of the swamp vehicles that the government buys, or even these ecotourists. I have not been to. I want to go to. I've been to south of Florida, Key West down there before, but I didn't take the boat ride. So it's like $150 you can ride out into the in an airboat, and that'd be kind of cool to see all the birds and the alligators or whatever. So, but ecotourism is a big deal. That's a big deal. And what's really kind of weird, that 10-ton waterway, is everybody familiar with the Tennessee River, 10-ton waterway? You ever know about that? Okay, kind of a quick history here. But there was a little river in places went no bigger than a creek behind your house. But it went from Mobile all the way to Bay Springs, up at Pickwick now. Y'all heard Pickwick, right? Pickwick up in Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi border, kind of triangle, whatever, they all come together. And so the senior congressman in the United States Congress was Jamie Whitten from Mississippi. He was the longest serving House representative until maybe a few years ago, but he was served for like 55 years in Congress. Well, if you've been there long enough, he was head of the Appropriations Committee. So no bill could get passed if he didn't what? Check off on it. And so his pet project was the Corps of Engineers, dredged this thing out and made a man-made river that runs all the way from Mobile up through North Mississippi, his district, up to start of the Pickwick. And then it goes into the Tennessee River there, and you can go all the way to Knoxville, or the Mississippi River, you can go all the way up to the Great Lakes. So basically, it's wide enough for 2 barges to meet. Now, it was sold as a economic thing, right, to help these rural Mississippi, Alabama. But guess what? It's going to end up paying for itself with ecotourism, because people fish it, and it's a big place for houseboats to go. And so it's turned into, and I think, has anybody been to Bay Springs? Okay, that's a really cool way on this central waterway. As we go up from ocean level, you have to have a locking down for the boats to go up and down, and you have to have a reservoir above the dam. So you go up, right up, you go this next one, you got to build your way up to the Tennessee River. Well, there's a huge lake up there, Sarge Lake. It's not as big as Sarge, but not as big as Arkansas. And they basically flooded the little town, moved the town, they moved the little town over there, and it's crystal clear water, real pretty. And my dad used to have a houseboat there. And my doctor friend had a ocean going boat there, which is escape place. We spent a lot of time with it. It's a beautiful, fun lake, okay, to go. And so that's ecotourism. That little thing, that project paid for itself with that. And there hadn't been much factories going up in there. So it hadn't really been very successful for factories. But anyway, that's an indirect value. Okay, and then she goes into, I won't bore you with it, but biocycling, waste recycling, helps keep fresh water, soil erosion prevention, regulate climate. We know we need more trees to pull that carbon dioxide out. Of course, ecotourism is huge. Now you have to pay to go into national parks, right? Florida gains $67 billion a year from over 86 million tourists who visit the state. 1,200 miles of Sandy Beach. So they're nothing like the ocean. Y'all love Bay Springs and people, I mean, all these beautiful, I think, in Gulf Shores and all that, Alabama too. Okay, so biodiversity, natural, let's move on here. Changes in biodiversity can impact everybody. Kumbaya. Okay, number of plant species versus rate of photosynthesis. I don't know what that's talking about, how it can influence it. Now this last one here is discuss some of these. Getting there. This has got 3 causes of extinction. So what is the main cause to take animals to become, or plants to become extinct? And it's time to go. I'll finish it tomorrow. We can stop right there and just look down. It's 10:50. Hey, so we'll stop it up here. I'll finish 47 tomorrow on a PowerPoint, on a video. Hey, y'all go over and sign up for this, right? It ain't in stone, but try to avoid that Thursday one, because Lord, I got the dorm mamas mad at me about, they got to be out of the dorm by 4 o'clock on Thursday. So, not like you can sit in the car and study for an hour, right? I got harassed.